This is the lightest Colnago Y1Rs in the world at just 5.97 kilos, including pedals, bottle cage, Garmin mount, all that stuff. That's about 1.5 kilo lighter than Tadej Pogacar's bike. But other than that, it's also just a super interesting build. So let's have a quick look around and check it out. So scales set to 0. Let's pick her up. On the scale she goes, hands off. 5.97 with pedals, with bottle cage, with Garmin mount, not bad. So last week I featured that 4.9 kilo Evolve full build. This is obviously a bit heavier than that, but obviously we're a full aero bike now, not a climbing bike, and we've got nice aero wheels in it. But of course, we're going to walk through the whole build in a minute, but let me talk you through the bike a bit. But obviously this is more of an aero build. If you didn't see the video on the Evolve, make sure you watch after this video. I'll put a link at the end of this video so you can roll straight into that. But today we're looking at this beautiful Y1Rs. Now this is not actually my bike, unfortunately. This bike belongs to the boss of OVERFAST, a guy called Brian. Absolute legend, is a huge bike nerd, has been into bikes for ages, and obviously you guys know OVERFAST, they like their super light parts, carbon fiber through axles, and this bike has a sprinkling of all of his own parts in it, which we're going to look through in a minute. So yeah, unfortunately not my bike, but a very nice bike indeed. Okay, so let's have a look through the bike, all the components that go into this build and make it that magical sub 6 kilo figure. So at the top we have a fancy Burke Composites saddle. He has a few saddles for this, and you know he also has a Cella Italia C59 saddle if he wants to get the weight down even more. But for his everyday riding, he says he uses this one, a bit more comfortable, a few more grams, all that stuff. Onto that we have the Darimo seat post, obviously another super light brand. Darimo out in Spain, I believe he's watching this video, so hey Darimo, hook me up. I think these are aftermarket clamps on the top though. I think these are a few grams lighter than the original Darimo clamps. I'm not sure exact details of this. This stuff is all way out of my price range, way out of my budget, so I don't know any of that. At the front of the bike we obviously have the Colnago cockpit. This is a 37 centimeter at the HUDs and 40 centimeter at the drops bar, I believe. Apparently an absolute nightmare to route the cables through, but that's not my problem. Then at the heart of the bike we also have the frame itself in the UAE team colors. I do think this is the best color to get this bike in. Size on this bike, I'm not actually sure because I don't think Colnago write the size of the bike on the frame, but it looks like a 54-ish to me. Moving further down we have the OVERFAST Aero cranks. These guys, you've been seeing them since the Taipei bike show video, the Shanghai bike show video. I've had a set on my new ER1, which you guys haven't seen, and now these things are also up on the website. So if you're interested in getting one of these Aero cranks, they're finally up for sale. Link will be in the description down below. Attached to these Aero cranks, we have the XKD power meter, and on the XKD power meter, we have the Cybre carbon chain rings. Again, all of this available over on pandapodium.cc. Another thing helping getting the weight of this build down is the wheels. These are the brand new OVERFAST wheels. Now, as you're watching this video, they may not be out yet, but may be coming soon. But basically a 50 mil deep wheel that's 1,000 and change grams. I think in the next year, we're gonna see a load of brands bringing out these 1,000-ish gram 50 mil deep wheels. Absolutely crazy numbers for disc brake wheels, weights that we never would have dreamt about years ago, but here we are, this is progress. So yeah, OVERFAST are one of the first brands to bring out a wheel at this depth and this weight. We'll talk more about those in a future video, I think. Wrapped around those, we have the Panaracer super light tires in a 25, I believe. Yeah, in a 25C, sub 200 gram tire. In there we have the Tubolito TPU tubes, not the Ride Now tubes. I was talking to Brian from Ride Now. I said, why don't you use the Ride Now ones? They're a few grams lighter. And he was saying he's a big fan of supporting brands that are like pioneers. So Tubolito pioneered the TPU tube, and then Ride Now kind of made it possible or made it accessible. But he says he likes to really stick with the pioneers of things, the originators of things, so I can respect that decision. So he's got Tubolito tubes in there. Brake rotors, I can see we've got Galfa rotors, 160 front, 140 rear. Again, could drop a few grams going 140 on the front there, but his bike, his choice. Cassette, not a crazy 6-wheel cassette, but this time just an in-color cassette. I think this one's about 170 grams, so not crazy 150 grams like the 6-wheel full titanium one, but the 6-wheel full titanium one is like, you know, $2,000 or whatever, and this is just a few $100s, so much more reasonable. Group set shifting duties is all handled by Shimano Dura Ace Di2. It's light, it's reliable, it stops the bike, it gets the job done. Oh, I also forgot to mention another sneaky OVERFAST part that we've got in there are the OVERFAST carbon fiber bar plug ends. So yeah, every gram helps when you're helping get the weight down. We only have one bottle cage on here, so is it race ready, not race ready? Probably not. But if we put the other bottle cage on and then change the saddle for the other saddle, we'll still be sub 6. So are we gonna nitpick that? You guys be the judge, go nitpick in the comments down below. And of course, keeping those wheels attached to the frame are the OVERFAST carbon fiber through axles, the product that OVERFAST are most famous for, and yeah, in a nice white color to match the paint job of the bike. So now let me just talk about my thoughts about the Y1RS in general. You know, everyone sees me as the Chinese brand guy. They think I'm anti-big brand, anti-Colnago, all that stuff. I do like Colnago. I wouldn't say I'm a Colnago fanboy as such, but you know, I have my Colnago Master, and then there is this. One thing I will say about this bike, and I hate it when people say this, it looks a lot nicer in real life than it does in photos and videos. I hate it when people say that, but it's true. This bike, I've seen it in photos and videos before, it never really did it to me, but in the flesh, this thing just looks wild, absolutely wild. It's a cool blend of like looking different to other bikes, but at the same time, looking familiar to a bike shape. So I really like what they've done with it. Yeah, in the flesh, absolutely love this thing. But that's what I like about it. What don't I like about it? Well, I was talking to Brian, the owner, and when he was building it up, he described it as a half-finished engineering project. Some of the things he was saying, apparently the cable routing on this handlebar is just the worst thing he's ever encountered. And also one thing that you've seen people talking a lot online about is this massive gap under here. Now Brian, he likes to tinker, he likes to create products obviously. He's actually 3D printed a small piece in here that makes this gap less, or should I say makes this gap a bit more waterproof, a bit more grime proof. As standard, if you look at the Y1RS, there's a huge gap in here where all sorts of dirt and muck can get in. On this particular one, I don't know if you can quite see it, but there's a 3D printed TPU piece in there just to help keep the grime out, but it doesn't affect the steering, it doesn't rub on anything. So yeah, that's a cool little trick part. One other thing that he said was unforgivable on a bike frame that costs this much. The Di2 wire coming out the frame had no grommet, just a big hole, and the cable's just kind of there, just wiggling around in the frame. So again, he 3D printed a TPU grommet in there, so now this cable doesn't rattle and no grime can get in either. Another thing he said, which he didn't bring today if he got it, the original waterproof like cover here, he says is too big and too ugly, so he has a much more elegant solution. I'll put in a photo if I remember here. So yeah. But yeah, when you spend $7,000 on a frame set, you don't really want to be 3D printing parts for it and staring at massive gaps in the hull and having all sorts of crummy little carbon fiber inside. Also, he was saying lots of the metal fittings on the bike, like seat post clamp and all the other like steer stop and stuff, are made out of pretty low metals, not very high-end fancy stuff, so there's lots of weight to be saved there as well. But yeah, when you're paying this much money for a bike, kind of a kick in the nuts. Another little birdie told me that the Y1RS, the #1 country for sales, has actually been China too. And I believe in China, somewhere between 100-200 units. From that, you can kind of guess how many have sold around the world, and I'm guessing it's just a few hundred units. The team, UAE Emirates, probably has more of these than paying customers do, which maybe explains why it's a bit rough and ready, because it's just designed for pro teams who just want to go fast in a straight line. And apparently, it does go fast in a straight line. We've all seen the popular media doing wind tunnel tests on this thing, and it is a very, very fast bike. Usually, the consequence of being a very fast bike is it's a heavy bike, but now you can have it with 6 kilos and be just as aero as Tadej's bike. So yeah, absolutely mind-blowing. I don't like it when people talk about supercars and superbikes and hypercars and hyperbikes, but if someone was to call a bike a hyperbike, I think this is as close as we can get to a hyperbike. But with it being a hyperbike, with it being a very expensive bike, Brian, he was very cool to lend me this bike, but he told me under no circumstances should you ride this outside. This thing is even crazier than on the scales. Woo! First impressions, it accelerates like a climbing bike, but it just rolls along like an aero bike. This is pretty wild. Again, not my bike, not my size, not my bar width, all that stuff. So take everything with a large grain of salt. But this thing is El Rapido. It's got that high modular buzz that you get with super high modular carbon frames, like the AR1, like the road buzz, you really feel it. And also you really feel how it just wants to stay perfectly planar, no matter what torques you're putting through the frame. Ride comfort, I can't really judge. Saddle is way too high for me, but it's not uncomfortable. 25mm tires on here, pumped up to 75 PSI, and yeah, definitely not uncomfortable. The front end, this bar setup with the kinks, I think is doing a decent job of getting rid of some road buzz. Here in Shannon we've got pretty good roads, but these speed bumps give you a good idea of how it handles the bumpy stuff. Out of the saddle, zero surprises with the weird seat tube. I was thinking it could be a bit of a floppy woppy, but no, it's a good shape. They've done something with the layup to compensate for these tube shapes, and you know, power transmission feels on point. Not that I have a lot of power, but if it's good enough for Tade, it's good enough for us all. But yeah, just cruising in aero HUDs, you definitely know you're on an aero bike. Handling wise, doesn't seem like the best handling bike I've ever ridden, but again, bear with me, not my stem length, not my bar height, all that stuff. But the most impressive thing is just the acceleration. So the Evolve Chima 4.9 kilo bike I was riding last week, that thing accelerates like crazy from like 0 to 30. But after 30, you're starting to push against the air, the acceleration is less impressive. This thing, 0 to 30, super impressive, but then after 30, just keeps on pulling, because obviously these aero shapes and these deeper wheels just keep that air resistance at a minimum. Very impressive. And yeah, usually for me, as soon as I'm on a climbing bike, you notice it 0 to 30 super fast, and after 30 it's just kind of like punching at the air. And then usually with an aero bike, you know, off the line you have to really give it the torque, give it the beans to get it going, and then once you're above 30 you get the benefits. This, in this build, best of both worlds. Now my ER1, I didn't build it very light, but after riding this, I'm definitely going to rebuild my ER1 and strip some weight off it. So if it ends up anything close to this, we have got a super bike on our hands. Bunny hops, no problem. The wheels and the cranks, I can't talk much for them because obviously on a totally different bike that I've never ridden before, so I have no basis of comparison of where the stiffness is coming from or not coming from, but nothing feels flexy. Maybe the wheels feel a few too many spokes for me and my weight, but again, hard to say because this big beefy front fork is probably also not allowing a lot of flex. Love it or hate it, this thing has an obnoxiously loud free hub body. One of the loudest I've ever heard, I think second loudest I've ever heard. There's one honorary free hub that's slightly louder, but this is the second loudest I've heard. Oof, angry bees. Big thanks to Brian from OVERFAST for lending me the bike. You guys go show him some love on Instagram, and like I say, I'll have more details on these cranks and wheels coming in the future. But if you don't have a disc brake bike that you want to drop some grams off, don't forget OVERFAST's carbon 3 axles, as unofficially raced in the World Tour. And yeah, what a ride. I thought my bike collection was almost complete. I think I've got another bike to add to the bucket list now. This is a nice bike. Well done, Colnago. Okay, just got back from the ride and I thought I'd share some of my thoughts on the bike with you. Yeah, all in all, a super nice bike. I'm not sure how much is down to the frame and how much is down to the build itself. I've got a feeling that in its stock form of like 7.5 kilos, it would probably be a lot like my ER1. You know, I described my ER1 as like a medieval siege weapon, like a battering ram. And I think this would be like that if it was 7+ kilos, but with it being sub 6 kilos, I think that's what's given it like the agility and the acceleration feeling of a more sprinty kind of like all-round bike. Like I said, the only way to know is to either make this heavier or make my ER1 lighter. So I'm definitely going to make my ER1 lighter and see what happens there. Usually when I build an aero bike, I kind of don't go all out on the weight savings. My thinking is already like, oh, the frame's already 1,000 grams, so why bother with Dura Ace? I'll just put Ultegra on it. Or like, why bother with carbon this? I'll just use alloy this. And those little things add up, and you end up with a 7 kilo plus bike. So yeah, I think I'm going to revisit my ER1 and really go weight choppy on it and see if I can get it to around the 6 kilo mark and see how it compares to this. But no, that's nothing to take away from this. I think Colnago did a great job on the frame. It's got a few quirks to it, like I say. The steering lock, so as I was riding around in general, it didn't catch me out. But there was one time we're on a closed road doing some filming and I went to do a U-turn and there was a curb. I'm trying to turn before I hit the curb and suddenly hit the steering lock and I almost ran into the curb. So yeah, not something that affects normal riding, but like, yeah, when you turn around in a car park or something, it can catch you out, and yeah, a bit of a code brown. Earlier in the video, I was complaining about things like, you know, the gap under here and the lack of a grommet and the alloy fixing being a bit wishy-washy, but I think the way it rides almost makes up for those. I think with the price hovering over there, like €5,500 for just the frame set, maybe that doesn't forgive it, but the way I'd kind of say it is like, it's really Italian, right? It's like Ferraris back in the day, like to change a timing belt, you had to like drop the whole engine out. Like, there's no real thought to the mechanics or the day-to-day owning of it. As long as when you get behind the wheel, it's great for the driver, who cares about the mechanic? And I think the same kind of philosophy has been applied here. Like, the brake cable through this handlebar is an absolute nightmare, but who cares as long as it rides well? I think that's kind of the philosophy. And yeah, maybe that's the Italian-ness of it coming through, because like I say, Ferrari comparisons, but at this point, I think Colnago is as Italian as I am Chinese. So yeah, judge what you want on that. But yeah, in general, just super nice bike and a super nice build. Tade, if you're watching and you're jealous, hit me up, comments down below, and maybe I'll throw some parts your way. Oh, and also while I was riding, I did comment that this 3-hub sound check is stupidly loud. So I'll let you see how it sounds off the bike. Let's get it going. Yeah, very, very loud 3-hub body. Links to some of the parts used on this build will be in the description down below. Tade, you can use some of your Tour de France prize money and go pick yourself some up. You guys, let me know in the comments down below what you think of this. Is this a travesty, an Italian bike with Chinese bike parts on it? I mean, the frame is, I think, made in China, so don't know what difference that makes, but yeah. But yeah, let me know in the comments down below what you think. And yeah, I guess I'll see you next time. China Cycling out.